Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today we're looking at Batman the Dark Knight from Theory11. So over the years, Theory11 has sort of become the Funko of playing cards. They've picked up licenses all over the place, everything from music, things like the Beatles and Elvis, to popular movies like The Avengers and Lord of the Rings. And I think it's great. They produce high quality decks with really nice tuck boxes in particular, and they do so at a really affordable price point. Most all of their decks are in that $10 to $15 range, and you get some really high quality for the price. So, big fan of Theory11 and what they've done to help draw people into the hobby with some really familiar licenses along the way. And for their latest, they've gone after one of my favorite superheroes ever. Venturing into DC Comics, we now have a deck based around the Cape Crusader himself, Batman. Now, in particular, this one goes after the trilogy from Christopher Nolan, and in my mind, some of the best superhero movies ever made. So, very excited to get a hold of this one. I'm a fan of Batman, whether it's from the comics or the movies, and can't wait to check this one out. So let's get right into it. All right, so starting off with the tuck box. This tuck box, like many from Theory11, is made by a place called Studio on Fire. And I gotta say, they do an amazing job. Theory11 tuck boxes are always a highlight. This one's really, really nice. It's done on a black, of course, a dark colored matte stock here, and it's covered with 3 different colors of foil. We have the black layer, as well as accents of silver and some clear bits on here as well, to produce a beautiful sculpted embossed design. Really super deep embossing, and the whole front here made to look like the front of Batman's suit. You get the plates of armor, even little bits of texture that kind of give you almost like a carbon fiber sort of vibe to them. Really cool look to it overall, and I love that they didn't include the name of the deck explicitly. That bat symbol, so recognizable, the name I don't think is needed at all. But the plates interlock beautifully, just a really super well designed front to the tuck box. And then really simply, just have Theory11 and playing cards, as well as the DC logo in silver down there at the bottom. So you turn to the sides, another look at the bat symbol there with DC Comics and Theory11. Same thing on the other side. Some ad copy at the bottom, including, of course, the Warner Brothers logo there. The top just says The Dark Knight, I believe it says there underneath the seal. And then the back has an embossed and foiled version of the back design of the cards. And here you can really see just how deep the emboss is if you look at Batman's helmet there. And then it finishes out with a really nice die-cut silver and black seal here that features, of course, a couple more bat symbols. We're going to see those all over the place in this deck. Speaking of which, there you go again on the inner flap, and then smaller bat symbols on the tiny flaps there. And then a nice touch, you get some interior foiling with a nod to the greatest nemesis that Batman has, the Joker. You get the scrawled laughter on the walls along with his classic "Why so serious" line. And then it kind of continues down the side. You get that little psychotic touch there with the interior foiling. Beautiful tuck box, just really super well done, captures the ambiance really well. Love the colors and the embossing, just really nicely done. Let's check out the cards. And we'll start with the back design. Here it is. So while I think it's a nice back design, certainly when looking at how beautiful foiled and embossed that tuck box is, this ends up looking a little bit flat, but I still think it's really nice. Features the top of Batman's helmet as sort of the main element, and then all sorts of little emblems and icons all the way through. You get the knife and the sword there, symbols of his early training with the League of Assassins, things like the little Batarang symbol there. Or I love the inclusion of the flower there. That's a blue flower from Bhutan. It was just made up for the movies, but it was the one that was used to create fear toxin that the Scarecrow uses, among other things. But really cool look to this one overall. The blacks and the grays, again, kind of really capturing the feel of Batman really nicely. And then finishes out with a thin white poker border that's just slightly broken up by these little gray or silver elements around the edge. So very nice look at the back design. And then who else could we include on the Jokers but the Joker himself? The Joker got to be the best villain in any comic anywhere. Just a fascinating character with a great backstory and an amazing sort of rivalry with Batman. In particular, of course, we get the Heath Ledger portrayal here. Many people think that's probably the best one. For me, Heath Ledger, Jack Nicholson, I think I can go either way. Very different portrayals, but Heath Ledger gives that just psychotic, crazy, super dark version of Joker that's just so memorable. So on one version, you get a close-up of his face with a scrawl of paint, and then he's holding a Batman Joker card there in his hands. And then the other one just has him with that really just sort of creepy stare that he gives so often. His trademark purple jacket, the green hair, just really perfect. And then the scrawled Joker in the corner in his crude handwriting there. So there's your two Jokers. Obvious who they were going to pick for the Joker cards. And then you get the four aces. So the ace of spades is the power ace. Of course, features that batarang or the bat symbol there in the middle. And then love the sort of angular approach they took with the spade. It kind of calls to mind the bat suit, the armor, and kind of brings those vibes in for the shape of the spade pit. And then on the front of it, you see a silent guardian, a watchful protector, the Dark Knight. Very cool look to it. Custom font for the index there in the corner. Nicely done. And then again, that kind of slightly more angular shape to the pit. Other three aces are simpler. This is very similar in style to kind of what they did for decks like the Star Wars decks, for example, just including a simple shape there in the middle of the pip. So like this one has the bat cycle there in the center. Next one has a little batarang sticking out of one of the prongs of one of the leaves of the club pip there. I really like that one. That's a cool look. And then the tumbler, that tank-like vehicle that he uses on the Ace of Hearts. So nice look at the aces. Ace of spades, definitely the best of the bunch, but kind of fun looks at some of the vehicles that are used in the movies. Number cards, relatively ordinary. They do get the sort of armor plates on them, again calling to mind the looks that you'll see in like Batman's suit of armor or whatever. Black with the little accents of that, I guess I'll call it bronze colored ink, slightly metallic there. And then on the red cards, same kind of look to them, but then this time just red with that bronze or gold color. So nothing too crazy on these. I like the shape of the club pips. I think those probably work the best of the four. And then into the hearts. So there's your number cards. Nothing too special on those. Pretty standard layout and all. And then we finally get to the courts. And the courts kick off, of course, with Batman himself as the King of Spades. They're full custom court cards, and they really draw on some vague elements from some of the more classic courts. Things like the pip-adorned lining here on the suit. But the character details are what really jump out more than anything. Most of the courts have little small details to pick out. Like on this one, you'll see, the emblem on his chest, the batarang there in his hands. Of course, he's wearing his classic cowl there. But in general, kind of does a good job of mixing in some classic elements with the character elements. Nothing too crazy or out of the ordinary, but I think they're pretty good depictions, nice and easily recognizable as you see as we go through these. So, while they could have gone a little crazier with the customization, I think they did a nice job kind of keeping a good functional, usable deck with these. So the other three kings all take a look at some of the classic villains that we're going to see through the three movies. Harvey Dent is here on the King of Diamonds. He was the one-time heroic prosecutor who actually became Two-Face after exactly one half of his face was scarred in a fire. This is the only two-sided court in the deck. I think it's a really clever use on this one. So on one side, you have Harvey Dent, the prosecutor, and then the other side, you see his more evil personality with the burned and scarred face. And of course, he's got his ever-present coin there, so he'll always flip that coin to decide whether his good side or his bad side is going to win out whenever he's deciding just how to punish somebody. Next up is the inhumanly strong Bane. He's wearing his trademark mask, that menacing-looking mask. And, you get his little elements that kind of make him even more recognizable, things like that high-collared jacket or just that menacing stare that he's got. So very cool look at Bane there from the last of the movies, I believe. And then finally we get Dr. Jonathan Crane, the Scarecrow. So he used fear toxin to poison and torture people. He's shown here wearing that burlap sack, that kind of stitched together sack that he uses as a mask. Actually has a rebreather in it to prevent him from being poisoned by his own toxin. And that lighter in his hand really calls to mind one of the more memorable scenes from the movie where he literally lights Batman on fire. So very cool inclusion there. I think they could have gone probably a little bit cruder. I think the mask there almost looks a little too smooth for the Scarecrow. So not my favorite depiction, but a great character. All right, then we go to the Queens and look at some of the women in Bruce's life. So Selena Kyle as Catwoman comes up first. She was a master burglar and even actually stole from Wayne Manor once. So you can see her here holding that pearl necklace. This actually used to belong to Bruce Wayne's mother, and Selena Kyle stole it from Batman right from under his nose. So very cool look at her there. And then next up, this is Rachel Dawes, who was one of Batman's childhood friends and actually a love interest of Harvey Dent. She has one of the most memorable scenes in the entire Dark Knight movie. So I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it, but super memorable. That envelope she holds in her hand, the letter inside, just sort of brings to mind one of those super emotional and dramatic moments in the trilogy. Well worth seeing the first movie if I haven't said that before. Next up, this is Talia al Ghul. She was a member of the League of Shadows. She's kind of a complicated character in the movies, and even more if you see her in the comics. She's a brutal killer, a skilled assassin, and of course an enemy of Batman and of Gotham City. But at various times she actually has a romantic relationship with Bruce Wayne as well. In the comics, she actually even marries Batman at one point. They have a kid together. So definitely a bit of a more complex character, if you will, but you can see her there with the dagger in her hands. And then the last of the Queens, this is Martha Wayne, Bruce Wayne's mother. You can see her there with the tickets in her hand, calling to mind that fateful day when she and her husband Thomas, as well as a young Bruce Wayne, all went to go see a play. And then, of course, she and Thomas Wayne were shot and killed. It was that death that sort of sparked Bruce Wayne's crusade for justice that he would carry on as he became the Batman. So cool to see her included in there. And then finally are the four Jacks, and all four of these characters are ones who, I guess, sort of were mentors in some sense of Batman at one time or the other. Ra's al Ghul is Talia's mother, and he's the first one on here. He's actually the leader of the League of Shadows, and he's a villain in a sense, but early on in the first movie in Batman Begins, he actually trains up Batman to, as a combat fighter, so trains him in martial arts and in swordplay and things like that. And then next up, this is Lucius Fox. He was the head of research for Wayne Enterprises, and he's actually the one responsible for inventing tons of the different gadgets and vehicles that help Batman along the way. Third one here, this is Commissioner Gordon. He's Batman's one of his most loyal supporters, partners with him as the head of the police to finally help bring some of those criminals to justice. And then last but not least, what would a deck be without Alfred? Alfred's Bruce Wayne's butler, his most loyal servant of all. He helps Batman execute his plans, but then also vows to protect his secret with his life. So, of course, Alfred has to be on a card as well. And that is the deck. Now, as far as handling and printing of these, so really nicely done. It's a nice, normal feeling stock, nothing particularly thin. It says these are made in the USA, but they don't specify a printer, and they're not made by the USPCC as far as I know. It doesn't feel like a USPCC deck, and it only includes 54 cards in it, whereas USPCC decks usually have 56. So wasn't able to piece together who printed these, but regardless, they still handle really, really nicely. So whoever printed them did a really good job with them. Slightly on the thicker side, but nothing that makes it too difficult to handle in any way. So no complaints on the handling of these, but you should know they're not printed by USPCC. And that is it for the deck. That's the look at the Dark Knight. Really beautiful deck. I think well done. Great familiar deck, and one that's really nice to kind of pull people into the hobby. So affordable deck. I think these were only $12. You can still get them on Theory11 if you're interested, or I have no doubt that these are going to pop up in places like Barnes & Noble and Target if you want to pick them up there as well. But highly recommend the deck, especially if you're a fan of the comics or the Batman movies. And if you haven't seen the Batman movies, go check out those as well. I think they're well worth watching. Or at least the Christopher Nolan trilogy is absolutely. Anyway, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews, more unboxings. Let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you for the next one.